welcome back. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about products that I'm just curious about where they went. A few years ago, a lot of these items were super talked about and they were holy grails and they were the ride or die and all that sort of thing, and now you almost never hear about it anymore. And to be honest, the first items on my list are actually being talked about now, and that would be the Urban Decay Naked 1, 2, and 3 palettes. And I firmly believe on Urban Decay's part, they did really good marketing on this. You didn't see many people talking about those palettes much anymore at all. If anything, it was in a declutter and if they were going to keep it or not. And most times the only reason why they were keeping it was for nostalgia reasons and that sort of thing. Now, all of a sudden, Urban Decay turns around and they make this big to-do about how they are discontinuing the Naked One, and all of a sudden you have all these people talking about it again, or you have all these people running to Sephora or wherever to purchase it because they have FOMO and they need to have it in their collection even though they haven't needed it for years. For the years that it has been out and that it was popular and they never had it. I know this doesn't refer to everyone. I mean, I myself, I don't have the Naked palette and I'm not running out to purchase it, but it's just been talked about so much more here on YouTube in the last couple months or however long it's been since they announced that they were discontinuing it. And again, bravo to Urban Decay, because that is some pretty good marketing on their part to get people talking about it again, get them talking about the new Naked Cherry palette that's coming out, and people that you may have missed out on the Naked One that, they weren't sure if they should get it or not. It's back in their minds. It's fresh. It's going to be discontinued. It's discounted already and everything if it's still available. So these people are running out and getting it, and they're making sales. One last, hurrah on sales for this palette that people stopped talking about. And while they're at it, I believe other people are now they're bringing back the Naked 2 and the Naked 3 into their conversations just because, well, for one, the Naked 3 kind of has similar tones to the Naked Cherry. That's kind of the first thing I thought of when I saw it. I'm like, oh, I think, it's kind of reminiscent of that a bit with the berries and the pink leaning that way a bit. But yeah, everyone seems to be talking about it again. But this idea was formed back when I was thinking, hey, no one's talking about these palettes, what happened? And then it got me thinking about some other products that I have heard and people were raving about, and all of a sudden you don't hear about it anymore. And I know the industry is always changing. I know formulas are always changing and improving for the better, hopefully most of the time, not always. And I know that there's so much on the market that I think a lot of the stuff we're not hearing about anymore because there's so much new stuff coming out. And a lot of these larger YouTubers here are talking about the new things that are coming out and not so much the old things. So you might have some smaller channels that are talking about it still, but it's kind of being flooded out or drowned out. Their voices are kind of being drowned out a bit by these larger YouTubers talking about all these new products that they're getting and they're seeing and they're testing and they're trying. And I don't necessarily believe that people were wrong in liking these things before and that they were disingenuine or weren't honest on their reviews. I believe people pretty much probably were. It's just, again, there's so much coming out. There's so much that they're reviewing. They don't have time to go back in their collection other than to look at it once in a while and be like, oh yeah, you were pretty. For this particular video, I am focusing on the high-end product that I haven't heard people talking about in a while. I do have some ideas for a drugstore video on this as well, just because I have quite a list for them. So to start things off, besides having the Naked palettes, because people are kind of talking about them again, the first thing would be NARS Orgasm. And this was like cult classic. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone seemed to kind of be using it. And if they weren't actually using it, they were duping it. There were so many dupe videos out there from, Milani, Luminoso, I think that's what it's called. And then there's an e.l.f. one, and then there was a couple of other ones, and everyone was saying, oh no, it's not quite. You can't get that look. But I'm pretty sure swatching them, they might be different. But when you put them on your cheeks, you probably couldn't tell the difference between most of them. But yeah, that's one that you don't hear talked about much anymore. I myself just purchased it not too long ago. Sephora had it available in a mini with a highlighter, hot sand, and I wasn't impressed with it. I don't know if I got a dud in the formula just because it was I'm not impressed by it. Let's just say if I had paid full size for that blush, it would be going back if it was the formula that I received. The one I have to actually take like a bobby pin and and scrape the top off just to get any color pigment. There's nothing. It's not soft, it's nothing. It's like a, I don't know, it has potential to be pretty, but again, it has gold flecks of glitter in it, which I don't understand why that made it so popular. I don't understand why it was so popular anyway, because most people are like, oh, I don't like glitter on my face. This one clearly has gold flecks of glitter in it. And yet everyone wanted it, everyone was using it, everyone was talking about it. To go hand in hand with the NARS Orgasm Blush, there was also the NARS Laguna Bronzer. I think there might have been a split pan of it at one point, I'm not sure, but that was a bronzer everyone was using, everyone was talking about, and you don't really hear anyone talking about that at all anymore. The next couple items that I don't really hear anyone talking about anymore would be MAC Whirl and MAC Twig, the lip liner and the lipstick. They used to be talked about so much. You don't hear a lot coming from people here on actual MAC lipsticks as much as it used to be. The odd time, you know, someone would be doing like a favorites video, like a favorites of all their collection, and they might pull something out, or how I did my makeup in high school, or one of those things, and then you'll end up hearing about MAC lipsticks, but in general, you don't hear a lot about it, and in particular, MAC Whirl and Twig, just because I remember those were super popular. Next on my list would be the Too Faced Melted Lipsticks, and I'm not talking about the melted matte, I'm talking about the squeezy tube melted lipsticks with the little, like, fluffy top on them. I mean, Too Faced does cutesy really well, and when you have like melted chihuahua, I have to say I do have that one. I like it. I enjoy the Too Faced melted lipsticks a lot. I think Too Faced and their melted lipsticks were kind of the forerunner in a lot of liquid lipsticks. I think a lot of people think of liquid lipsticks as matte, but it doesn't need to be that way. If you think of the term liquid lipstick, it could be matte, it could be creamy, it could be, you know, metallic, it could be all kinds of things. When you think about it, a liquid lipstick doesn't have to be matte. That's just kind of the way this whole industry has kind of taken it, because those are what became very popular. But before the drying out matte liquid lipstick trend, Too Faced did have these melted lipsticks that were really comfortable on the lips. They wore pretty well in quite a while. They weren't transfer proof, and they weren't things that you had to use oil to take off at the end of the day by any means, but they were kind of like the first in the industry to kind of come out with something like that. That wasn't a gloss, and it wasn't, you know, it was still a lipstick, but it wasn't a gloss, but it was in a squeezy tube, and you applied it differently, and it was just all around a comfortable feeling, and they did wear a lot longer than a lot of traditional lipsticks. But yeah, they weren't matte. They were just regular liquefied lipstick. Going back to NARS again, I have NARS Turkish Delight, and I believe this is a gloss. Think I never had it, but I do remember people talking about it, and they loved it, and it was like the thing to have. And I remember going into Sephora, and I was between this and the next item on my list, the Buxom White Russian, and I was like, these ones are popular, everyone's talking about it, I want to have it in my collection. So I go into Sephora and I swatch them, and I'm like, these things are super pale. Who wears this stuff? Because I'm not deep skinned by any means. I can push medium kind of during the summer, light, medium, you know, rest of the year, but I don't have a super deep complexion. So for as many people that were talking about Turkish Delight and White Russian, I was very surprised. I did end up picking up the White Russian because I felt that it was a little bit more flattering to me than the Turkish Delight. But yeah, I didn't understand why those two are so popular. I mean, I understand the formula, especially of the Buxom one, because I really do like the formula of those lip glosses. I have a whole pile of them. And my favorite would probably be Dolly, because it's much more of a flattering shade for myself. But again, I don't understand why it was so popular to begin with, because they were such pale shades. And I know there's a lot of pale skinned people out there, but there's people that, I don't know, it just seemed to be something that a lot of people were talking about for the shade of it. And maybe it was just the time too, you know, maybe that was more the style. Probably that's what a lot of this probably boils down to as well. You know, trends change and that sort of thing too. But having said that, and not understanding why it was so popular, I mean, they were very popular. People were talking about them all the time, but now you don't really hear about it anymore. The only time I hear anyone talk about them really is if there's like a new shade coming out in the Buxom range, or, you know, they might have a Christmas kit, or a couple years ago they came out with a new White Russian, and it had like bedazzled or something kind of tube, something special, and so people were picking it up again and talking about it. But other than that, you don't really hear anyone talking about that anymore. You hear people talking more about colors that are a little bit deeper when it comes to glosses now, not so super pale, which I'm more of a fan of because those are things that actually I feel look better on me. But I still wear my White Russian because I paid for it and I kind of want to use it up. Next up, I have the Benefit Hoola Bronzer. I remember people talking about this and they get a little bit of pan in that box and they run out and they buy another one because they were running out because they love this bronzer so much. And again, I never had this bronzer, but people seem to love it and I don't get it. You don't hear about it anymore. For as popular as it was, you would think people would still talk about it because I think a lot of people used it as a contour. And I mean, other than the butter bronzer, you don't hear a lot of other things going on. It's not like a lipstick where the shades are always changing. I mean, it's a bronzer. How much more different can it get? You know, if it was good then, why isn't it good now? They still sell it. It's still in all those cheek parade things that they put out every year. It's still something that you can get, I believe, in a mini size. I guess I'm just surprised we don't hear about it more just because people were actually going out and buying backups of it because they liked it so much. Another Benefit item that I don't hear talked about that much anymore would be the Benefit Roller Lash. And I know mascara is very personal depending on, you know, what you're looking for in your mascara. Do you want volume? Do you want length? Do you just want a little bit of color? You know, do your lashes curl on their own or do they go straight? Do they fall? All kinds of factors go into a mascara and what makes people talk about it, but I remember people talking about the Roller Lash so much. And I don't even know if they had a mini at the time, but I remember I was tempted to pick it up. I never did. I never have tried it, but for me personally, I don't have a problem with my lashes being straight. They curl pretty well on their own. I don't usually need any extra help with that, even with an eyelash curler or anything. I find actually when I do use an eyelash curler, they end up kinking a little bit, and I don't like the look of it as much as I just like it when I do it naturally. I am curious to see how it would work. I mean, it's still available. The odd time you'll hear someone talk about it, but for the most part, you don't hear about the Roller Lash. You still hear about the Better Than Sex. You still hear about the Urban Decay Perversion. You still hear about L'Oreal Voluminous and a bunch of other ones that have been out there for years that have been classics, but you just don't seem to hear anything about the Roller Lash anymore. Moving on, we have another item and it is the MAC Pro Longwear Concealer, and I think most of us can probably agree that if anyone was still talking about it before Shape Tape, once Shape Tape came out, no one talked about it anymore. Maybe if you're here in Canada or somewhere else overseas where Shape Tape isn't as readily available, you might still be talking about Pro Longwear, but for the most part, no one talks about anything except Shape Tape. And then another, you know, couple might come in and be like rivaling for that attention, but for the most part, most people are still talking about Shape Tape and not MAC Pro Longwear at all. I know it had its faults. I know the packaging was kind of crumbing on it with the pump, but it was very full coverage and it was something that people loved and they talked about all the time. Last on my list, I have the Lorac Pro 1 and 2. The smaller palettes, not the Mega Pros. People love these. They were painting every shade in it and they were like proud to show how much pan they had in these. And I mean, people seem to really like these even more than the Naked palettes. Like people talked about the Naked palettes because they had it, but people were actually using the Lorac palettes from what I was watching. At least the people that I was watching were using them. And yeah, they were painting them and they had their favorite 1 or 2. And, you know, number 3 came out and people were like, not for me. You know, it was a little bit too subtle. There's a few people that talked about it, but not many. But yeah, I think even now I more often hear people mentioning the Mega Pros, which are limited edition releases, than the actual ones that are still available. Or some people talk about the unzipped palettes, but you don't usually hear about the number 1 and the number 2. Again, they are products that I don't have in my collection until recently. Until the last year and a half or so, we couldn't get products here in Canada from Ulta. They didn't ship to Canada. I mean, you had to go through different services to get it. It was just kind of an all-around pain in the butt. I never really like ordering from brands directly just because sometimes it's a pain with shipping. They don't usually have a discount on it to ship international. Long story short, Ulta now ships to Canada, so Lorac is more easily available to us here in Canada if you're willing to ship over the border. It's not that much more difficult than shipping from Sephora. you just have to worry about duty and taxes, and it takes a little while longer, but it isn't generally a hassle. I do have the Lorac Mega Pro 4, but I don't have the regular Pro 1 and 2. I have Makeup Revolution dupes of them that are supposedly similar. I don't know how similar they actually are in formula and that sort of thing. I've never tested them out against each other. But yeah, it kind of makes me sad a little bit that no one's talking about it, just because you could tell people really love those, because it wasn't just like the Naked palettes where there might be 1 or 2 shades that were used. Like, people were hitting pan on them at almost every shade in these palettes. And those are a few of the items that I was sitting down and thinking about and wondering whatever happened to them, because I don't hear anyone talking about them anymore. Are these items that you still use? Do you have them in your collection? Have you ever used them? Did you like them? Did you not ever care for some of these? What are some other items that you've had in your collection or that you remember hearing about and hyped up that you just don't hear about anymore? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. I know the industry is always changing. There's always new things coming out. Formulas are changing and trends and styles are changing. I get all that. I was just wondering what happened to some of these items. You know, are they sitting in the back of a drawer collecting dust? Are people actually using them still, just maybe not on camera because they have other things to talk about? Are they just forgotten about because so many other things have come out? I don't know. At any rate, maybe this video has given you some food for thought. Maybe you have some of these items that you haven't pulled out for a while and you're like, hey, maybe I'm gonna go try that out. Maybe I'm gonna pull that out of my drawer and I'm gonna get my money's worth out of it if it hasn't, gone bad yet. Or I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.